You've got big goals. You picture a future where you're successful, confident, living the kind of life most people only talk about. But here's the hard truth. You keep getting in your own way. You know what needs to be done. You've read the books, watched the videos, made the plans, yet when it's time to act, you stall, you scroll, you delay, and afterward comes that quiet guilt, the kind that whispers, "You're capable of so much more than this." That guilt doesn't disappear. It piles up. Days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months. Eventually disappointment feels normal. Then January comes around and you recycle the same resolutions you made last year. At first, you're fired up. New year, new energy. But motivation fades fast. Procrastination sneaks back in. Subtle at first, then constant. Before long you're not just delaying tasks, you're calling yourself a lazy person. So how do you actually break this pattern? Most advice online focuses on surface-level fixes: delete social media, block distractions, wake up earlier. And while those can help temporarily, they don't solve the core issue. The real problem is something called inertia. In physics, inertia describes how an object at rest tends to stay at rest. And an object in motion tends to stay in motion unless acted upon by an external force. This principle was formalized by Isaac Newton in his first law of motion. But inertia doesn't just apply to physical objects. It applies to you. When you're doing nothing, staying inactive feels natural, starting feels heavy, and the bigger the task appears in your mind, the stronger that resistance becomes. So instead of beginning, you escape into easy, instant rewards, quick hits of stimulation that require zero effort. The solution isn't more willpower. It's lowering the barrier to entry. The hardest part of any task is starting. So make the starting point almost laughably small. Don't pressure yourself with thoughts like, "I have to do 100 push-ups in a row." Instead, tell yourself, "I just need to do 2. Don't think, "I have to finish writing this book." Start simpler. "I just need to write 3 lines." When the goal is small enough, the resistance inside you starts to fade, and getting started becomes much easier. You don't need massive discipline. You just need a small push to begin. There's another simple strategy you can use called the 2-minute rule. It's very straightforward. When you want to do something but feel lazy, just do it for 2 minutes. After that, you're allowed to stop if you want to. For example, if you want to clean your house, turn on a song, then grab a broom and clean until the song ends. If you want to work, set a timer and focus for just 2 minutes. The same goes for studying. What usually happens is that once the 2 minutes are up, you don't actually stop. You keep going. The reason is simple. Your brain hates unfinished tasks. If you've swept half the floor, you'll want to finish the rest. If you've started a project, you'll feel the urge to complete it, at least a part of it. If you're writing, stopping in the middle feels uncomfortable. You'll want to finish the thoughts that are still forming in your head. After the 2 minutes are up, stopping actually becomes harder than continuing. And just like that, 2 minutes turn into 20, then an hour, then even more. When we set the goal to do only a tiny part of the task, or to work for just 2 minutes, it's like knocking over the first domino. Once the first domino falls, the rest follow automatically. Once you break through that initial inertia, momentum carries you forward. That's why the first step has to be small. The smaller it is, the easier it is to overcome inertia. When you feel lazy or stuck in procrastination, give yourself the smallest possible goal. So small it almost feels silly. So small that you think, it would be harder not to do this. For example, do 2 push-ups, write 2 lines, work for 2 minutes, and once you've started, once that first domino has fallen, you'll begin to see the magic happen. That's the secret to overcoming laziness and procrastination. The next method you can use is called the 5-second rule. It's simple. When you know you should do something but don't want to, because you're procrastinating, feeling lazy, scared, or hesitant, count down in your head from 5 to 1, and then act immediately, before your brain has time to make excuses. The mechanism behind this method is straightforward. When you think about doing something, your brain immediately asks 2 questions. Is this dangerous? And will this require a lot of energy? That's because your brain is wired with one main goal: keep you alive and conserve as much energy as possible. For example, if you suddenly think, "I want to travel across the country on a motorcycle," Within seconds your mind will flood you with worries. What if I get into an accident? What if my motorcycle breaks down in the middle of nowhere? Where will I eat and sleep? What if I get robbed while I'm out on the road? Another example is this. In your daily life, there are moments when you're lying in bed, just about to get up and do something. But right at that moment, thoughts pop up in your head. Well, I can do it later. Let me lie down and scroll on my phone for a bit first. At its core, this mechanism of the brain isn't bad. It's actually what helped humans survive and avoid extinction. But in modern society, that same mechanism can hold us back. It can turn into procrastination. It can turn into laziness. To deal with this, Mel Robbins introduced the 5-second rule. She argues that when we want to do something but our brain starts finding reasons to stop us, there's a small gap, about 5 seconds, between these two states. And during this time, if we recognize it's something we should do and decide to act on it immediately, it becomes much easier because the brain hasn't had time to come up with excuses yet. Once your brain starts generating a list of reasons not to do it, making the decision becomes much harder. A very practical way to apply this method is in the morning. The moment your alarm goes off, instead of turning it off and going back to sleep like usual, try this. After you silence the alarm, count down from 5 to 1. Then immediately sit up, count down another 5 seconds and walk straight to the bathroom. In reality, by the time you reach 3 or 2, you're already capable of making the decision to move. But if you let more than 5 seconds pass, your brain will start doing what it does best, making excuses so you can stay in bed. The final method I want to share comes from David Goggins. Deliberately doing things that make you uncomfortable. In simple terms, set a daily repeating alarm and dedicate a fixed block of time to intentionally do something uncomfortable. Like holding a plank, going for a run, working out, or even consciously sitting up straight. This method only works if these are actions you choose to do. And while doing them, you genuinely feel the discomfort. The root reason people procrastinate and act lazily is that they avoid discomfort. They don't want to face it or push through it. And their willpower hasn't been trained. David Goggins really hates so-called hacks. He believes the best way to solve the problem is to attack it head-on. If you're too afraid of discomfort, then deliberately seek it out. The difference between David and us is initiative. Most people wait until hardship, challenges, or uncomfortable situations show up, and only then do they try to deal with them. But David is different. He doesn't wait for discomfort to find him. He goes looking for it. David has competed in some of the toughest ultramarathons on the planet. He once ran 160 kilometers non-stop for hours, pushing his body so far that the bones in both of his feet were fractured. And instead of quitting, he wrapped his feet tightly with rope to hold the bones in place, and kept running. He once set a Guinness World Record by completing over 4,000 pull-ups in 17 straight hours. After finishing, his hands suffered third-degree burns from the friction against the bar. He has said that on many mornings, when it was still dark outside and snow was falling, he would still wake up, lace up his shoes, and go for a run. No one forced him to do any of that. He chose to. Now think about it. For someone like David Goggins, do you really think everyday struggles, the kind most people label as procrastination or laziness, could stop him? Later on, scientists found that the very method David uses, deliberately doing things that make you uncomfortable, is one of the most effective ways to build willpower. If you consistently train this way every day, over time you'll notice your willpower and mental toughness getting stronger. Eventually things like laziness, procrastination, and discomfort won't be able to block your path anymore. It's like someone who never exercises trying to do 30 push-ups. It feels almost impossible. But if that same person trains consistently every day, 30 push-ups eventually won't feel difficult at all. In a society where people can't tolerate 5 minutes of boredom, where losing Wi-Fi for 5 minutes feels like the world is ending, the lifestyle of David Goggins becomes more worth learning from than ever. The methods in this video are practical and effective. You can start applying them today to improve your life. Alright, that's the end of the video. I'll see you in the next one, and have a great day.